So, right now, somewhere in Silicon Valley, there's a tech company writing software that basically moves at the speed of light. But to actually run that software, they're out there sparking bidding wars for electricity in Texas and, draining municipal water reserves in Arizona.
Yeah, and funding these multi-billion-dollar copper mines deep in Zambia.
Exactly. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, our mission is to take a huge stack of global news logs and structural analyses from March 2026 and, well, look past the daily headlines. We're unpacking a massive, interconnected shift in global infrastructure that's playing out around you right now.
Right, because reading the daily news is usually kind of like watching the weather. It changes every day. But today, the sources we have are going to let us look at the tectonic plates shifting underneath.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the friction between these different global systems is wild.
It really is. And to understand the reality we are living in today, we have to look at what we could call membrane tension.
Membrane tension, I like that.
Yeah, think of it like this. Imagine the world runs on a complex, layered operating system. You have a layer for energy, a layer for finance, and a layer for technology. And what we're seeing right now are these extreme points of friction where those different layers are just violently rubbing up against each other.
So it's not just one thing going wrong, it's the friction between them.
Precisely. We are going to explore how this tension is unfolding and really where the pressure is building up the fastest.
Well, I want to start with those pressure points, because to see the tectonic plates shifting, we first have to look at three major earthquakes happening simultaneously right on the surface. It's this phenomenon the sources are calling the triple squeeze.
The triple squeeze.
Right. And the first layer of that squeeze is energy. Specifically, we've got the escalation of the Iran war, which has severely disrupted the Strait of Hormuz.
And that disruption is huge. It's impacting roughly 20% of global oil and liquid natural gas supplies. So naturally, we are seeing oil surge back over $100 a barrel.
Which hurts a lot.
It does. But if we look at the underlying mechanics, it's more than just a price spike. Energy has fundamentally changed its role. For decades, we really just treated energy as this highly liquid, traded market,
Yeah, you need power. You just buy it on the open market and it flows.
Exactly. But now it has resurfaced as a hard physical constraint on the world. The sheer availability of electrons and molecules is now actively dictating what can and cannot be built.
Wow. Okay, which brings us to the second part of this triple squeeze, which is the financial layer. I mean, you would normally assume that with energy prices causing this much economic pain, central banks would try to, stimulate the economy, cut rates.
You would think so, yes.
But the Federal Reserve and the Bank of Canada, they are maintaining really hawkish stances. High interest rates are just proving to be incredibly sticky.
Yeah, they are keeping those rates punishingly high. And it's an attempt to choke off spending and cool down inflation, which ironically is largely being driven by those very same energy constraints and these new trade tariffs.
Right, the tariffs are definitely playing a part.
Oh, absolutely. But when we talk about high interest rates in this context, we have to look at how that actually hits the physical world. High borrowing costs act as a massive gravitational pull on concrete and steel.
Because it's so expensive to fund big projects.
Exactly. If a company wants to lay down a new regional power grid or construct a massive cooling facility or dig a copper mine, they have to borrow billions of dollars to do it. So with interest rates sitting at these elevated levels, the cost to just service that debt skyrockets before a single shovel even hits the dirt.
So wait, you have a constrained physical energy supply driving up costs and a constrained financial system making it exponentially harder to invest your way out of the problem.
That is the bind we are in, yes.
But here's where it gets really interesting, because I struggle to square that logic with what we are seeing in the tech sector, which is the third squeeze.
The AI infrastructure boom.
Exactly. If money is that expensive to borrow and energy is that scarce, heavy infrastructure spending should just be grinding to a halt, right? Companies should be pulling back.
In a normal cycle, yes.
Yet U.S. power demand is hitting absolute record highs for 2026 and 2027. And the sources show high demand scenarios projecting a 7.3% increase in gas-fired power generation alone.
Wow. Which is an incredible spike.
It is. And the driver for this isn't like traditional manufacturing. It's almost entirely AI and data centers. The tech giants are aggressively pursuing this all-of-the-above energy strategy. Gas, nuclear, renewables. They're literally co-locating data centers directly with power plants just to avoid waiting in line for grid connections.
Right, skipping the queue entirely. What's fascinating here is that this paradox is the core of the tension. We are witnessing the physical manifestation of AI.
Meaning it's not just code anymore.
No, not at all. A few years ago, the consensus was just that AI was software, floating in the cloud, but the cloud lives on the ground. AI has rapidly morphed into a heavy industry. It is literally eating vast tracts of land, gigawatts of dedicated power, and millions of gallons of water.
So these aren't three isolated headlines.
No, they are three layers of pressure compressing the global system at once: energy constraints, sticky finance, and AI's immense physical hunger.
I want to push back on this a bit, though, just from an economic standpoint.
Yeah.
Because normally, if the economy slows down, rates drop and energy gets cheaper. But right now, we are seeing this weird coexistence of economic slowdown, high borrowing costs, and surging infrastructure demand.
It defies traditional modeling.
It's like trying to slam on the brakes and floor the accelerator at the exact same time.
Yeah.
Has AI basically stopped being a software industry entirely?
It really has. That visual of the brakes and the accelerator captures the mechanical failure perfectly. We are trying to force a massive physical build-out in an environment that is inherently hostile to building.
Which brings us back to that membrane tension you mentioned.
Exactly. The system is groaning. And the reason this triple squeeze is happening right now, why it's not just bad luck, is down to a fundamental mismatch in velocity.
A mismatch in speed.
Yes. Between two completely different operating systems governing how our world functions. We have the fast OS and the slow OS.
Okay, let's define those, because that framework helps make sense out of all this chaos.
Yeah?
What makes up the fast OS?
The fast OS represents all the systems that can pivot and scale at lightning speed. So AI algorithmic development, which evolves by the week, financial market trading, moving capital globally in milliseconds, and even modern military conflicts.
Like autonomous drone strikes.
Right, which can escalate or shift targets in a matter of minutes. That is the fast OS.
Got it. So then the slow OS is the physical reality.
Precisely. It encompasses our municipal water systems, regional power grids, resource extraction. You cannot build a new copper mine overnight. You cannot expand a city's water supply in a week just because a tech company updated its language model.
A friction point is the shear then.
Yeah.
The fast OS is literally dragging the slow OS.
Yes. A great example from the sources is cooling demand. AI data center cooling demands are beginning to clash directly with local water supplies in heavily water-stressed areas.
Like in Arizona, right? And Singapore.
Exactly. The digital ambition of the fast OS is colliding head-on with the physical reality of the slow OS.
It's like trying to run the latest, most demanding smartphone software on a 15-year-old battery. The software wants to move incredibly fast, but the physical hardware is literally melting trying to keep up.
That is a perfect analogy. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the physical world is reasserting its dominance over the digital world. The long-held assumption that energy, water, and resources would simply be available on demand is completely breaking down.
Wow. And because of this massive friction between fast digital demands and slow physical realities, the actual map of the world is being redrawn, isn't it?
It is. The map is no longer being defined primarily by national borders. It is being redrawn by resource corridors and power grids.
Let's talk about those resource corridors, because the sources highlight two massive projects that totally go under the radar of typical geopolitical news.
The Copper Project.
Right. Because copper is the absolute bottleneck for all of this, isn't it? Electric vehicles, power grids, AI. They all need it.
Copper is the physical conductive path. You cannot build the fast OS without it.
So in Argentina, despite all their national financial anxieties, there is a $4 billion IPO moving forward for the Los Azules copper project.
$4 billion in that economic climate is staggering.
It is. And then in Zambia, a company called Cobalt Metals is pouring $2.3 to $2.5 billion into a project to produce 300,000 tons of copper annually.
And they're using AI-driven exploration to find it.
Which is just a crazy loop.
Yeah.
Using AI to find the copper to build more AI. But it shows that these resource corridors are really becoming the main characters of the global economy.
They absolutely are. Capital is flowing directly to the friction points, bypassing traditional narratives of stability.
But this tension isn't just happening out in remote mining regions. It's hitting major urban centers, too. The sources talk about cities becoming literal battlegrounds.
Yes. Cities are no longer just passive containers for people. They are active collision points for power, security, and capital.
Give me an example of that. Because the military drone strike aspect is wild.
It is. For the first time, major U.S. tech data centers, specifically Amazon Web Services facilities in the UAE and Bahrain, have suffered direct physical damage.
From drone strikes.
Yes, drone strikes causing power outages and severe water damage from the fire suppression systems going off.
Wait, so a drone strike in the Middle East isn't just a distant geopolitical event anymore. It's a direct threat to global cloud computing availability.
Exactly. The fast OS of modern military conflict intersected directly with the slow OS of cloud infrastructure. A localized strike now severs data flow worldwide.
That is terrifying.
Yeah.
But even without the military aspect, cities are fighting an economic battle on their power grids, right?
Absolutely. Look at the grid economics in Abu Dhabi. They are currently building a massive 5.2 gigawatt solar facility.
Which is huge on its own.
It is. But they are pairing it with a 19 gigawatt hour battery project. Its entire purpose is to guarantee 247 baseload power to solve the intermittency of renewables.
Because AI training runs cannot handle a power dip. If a cloud passes over the solar panel, the multi-million-dollar training run crashes.
Exactly. They need perfectly flat power. Meanwhile, back in North America, in data center corridors like the Erie CRK grid in Texas, the numbers are shocking.
Yeah, wholesale power prices are projected to jump up to 79% by 2027, purely from AI load.
79%. Just think about that.
I mean, a local power grid in Texas is basically in a bidding war with a tech giant's AI server farm. How does a regular person living in these cities even cope with that?
Well, this is exactly how global membrane tension hits the everyday person. It doesn't look like an abstract geopolitical theory when it hits your wallet. It trickles down as drastically higher electric bills.
And warped housing prices, probably.
Yes, because tech workers and infrastructure capital flood into the regions that have stable grids, driving up the cost of living. Cities are literally being forced to upgrade their operating systems to survive this concentration of heavy digital infrastructure.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? It means you really have to stop looking at the news as random, isolated events.
Right, they're all connected.
Whether it's sticky inflation, a new AI tool dropping, or a copper mine opening in Zambia, it's all part of the exact same friction between our fast digital ambitions and our slow physical limits.
Which raises an incredibly important question.
What's that?
The sources show that our current reality is locked in this high-tension phase because of three specific constraints: restricted energy, high AI power demand, and high interest rates.
The triple squeeze.
Right. But what happens if one of those underlying assumptions suddenly breaks?
Oh, wow. Like, what if an unexpected breakthrough makes AI vastly more energy efficient tomorrow?
Exactly. Or what if a massive, cheap new power source comes online much faster than expected? We are currently tearing up the physical world to build a heavy infrastructure specifically for today's AI.
But what if the fast OS pivots again?
That is the risk. If the fast OS changes its nature, it leaves us with a radically different set of physical needs. We might be building the wrong slow OS.
We're terraforming the planet for software that might not need it in 5 years. That is a wild thought to leave you all to mull over. Keep your eyes on the friction out there. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.